Welcome to another edition of the 90s and Noughties UK podcast. Hopefully, this is a regular run. We'll just have to see how things go. So in this episode, I will be starting a brand new run of episodes which focus primarily on the British sitcom, asking the question, is insert name of sitcom the best British sitcom of the 90s? We might do the noughties at another point, but maybe we can do some kind of knockout thing later. So the 90s is the focus point. And in case you're wondering, what is the entry point for this? Well, for this, a sitcom has to have started in the 90s or had the majority of its run in the decade. Okay, so it might have been, or maybe for special cases, its most prominent time was in the 90s. So if you look at things, if we were doing American sitcom and we talked about The Simpsons, it's obvious that the 90s is like its golden period. So that is the criteria for this. And with that in mind, let's ask the question in this episode, is As Time Goes By the best British sitcom of the 90s? It ran on and off until 2005, but it started in 1992 with the majority of its run in that decade over 9 series plus 2 specials, 67 episodes in total, created by Colin Bostock-Smith and written by Bob Larbey. It is a classic starring Judi Dench and Geoffrey Palmer, alongside an ensemble cast of faces that you see pop up in 90s television absolutely everywhere. But in this series, I think the majority of the faces are known for this. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest. It's my wife, Andrea, who is a massive fan of this show. Is this the best sitcom of the 90s?
Yes. To me, yes. Short answer, absolutely. I think, in all honesty, if you had to ask me about any of the sitcoms that I watched in the 90s, it's pretty much up there at the top. I can't think of any that, we refer to it at home as my comfort watch, don't we? It's my thing that I can watch over and over and over again, still laugh at it. It makes me feel comfortable. It makes me feel relaxed. It makes me feel like I'm putting on an old pair of slippers and meeting up with old friends. It's just great.
From the moment that those entry titles come on.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I get happy just thinking about it now.
There's a degree of nostalgia there.
Definitely.
It's quite a fitting thing because this is the story of Jean and Lionel, who haven't seen each other for years and then suddenly meet each other coincidentally and thus restart the relationship that they could have had decades ago. And as I say, Judi Dench and Geoffrey Palmer play the leads in this. And they are just sublime. And it's worth noting, because I realise there are people on social media who know this stuff, that Judi Dench starred in a previous series with a very similar premise called A Fine Romance with her husband, Michael Williams. That was on the ITV network, not a network I think we'll be talking about very much in this run of episodes, but that's a classic in its own right. It's very of its time. This kind of, in my opinion, improves on that formula, and I think knowing that Judi has already done a series of very similar premise, it doesn't feel like she's treading through the same path, does it?
Not really. It feels at the beginning, in the first kind of series and a half, 2 series, almost like they're trying to relive that. Like they're going, oh, that was funny, let's do that again with a slightly different setup. You know, the premise behind it is a little bit different, but we've got a lot of similar elements. And then from I think around series 3 onwards, it really takes a very different turn. It becomes its own thing. They settle into that really comfortable place where they know what they're doing. They know who the characters are. We as the audience know who the characters are. And we just tune in every single week to see them do what they do, to see our favourite characters, who are this comfortable pair of slippers, like I said, encounter all these different situations. And it's just perfect. And I would like to just take a slight deviation for a second and say I have no idea why at the age of like 5, 6 and 7 this resonated with me in any kind of way. When I look back at it as an adult, I'm like, why did I want to watch this as a kid? And I did. I wanted to watch it. I would sit down with my family on, I don't know what night of the week it used to be on when it was first on. But it would come on and the titles would come on and I'd be like, oh, good, as time goes by, I love this show. When I was like 6 years old, I have no idea what it had for me then. I used to love it. I used to think it was hilarious when Alistair walked into the room and said, hi, lie. Like, that's the kind of level of humour of a 6-year-old, I guess, isn't it?
Exactly. And you've hit on, actually, that it manages to escape that fine romance thing, which was also co-created, I think, by Bob Larbey. I think that was also one of his.
That makes sense.
Certainly. So it would feel like it was treading through, but actually, because of those extra characters, like the daughter and Alistair and Sandy and his parents and everybody else, it allows the world to kind of go in different directions and different stories.
Multi-generational. It really appeals to a lot of different areas of you as a person, I think. Not even just, oh, look, it appeals to grandmas because it's got a grandpa character. You know, it's not as simplistic as that. I think it just appeals to lots of different elements of yourself, one person watching it.
I came to it very late. I watched it on UK Gold in the late 2000s through a very difficult period. And it was like a comfort blanket or a hot water bottle. It was just checking in on these characters. And I love the fact that at the beginning, Judi Dench's character is a secretary or manager of a secretarial agency. And then by the end, she's just loitering around the house with Lionel having little adventures, little observations on getting on in years and all the strange characters they meet without even leaving the house in some cases. All of these things, it's worth noting as well that the Americans love this show because it is so British. There's so much Britishness in it. I've seen comments on there like, what's a custard tart? And things like that. And it's so amazing to see people from other countries engaging with this thing that is very British.
It is, and yet it doesn't...
It's universal.
Yes, I think so, because actually they're in a very small world a lot of the time. They don't really go out into England, do they? They're in the house most of the time. They're sometimes in Jean's office. They're sometimes in, like, in the early series, they do like book signings and stuff with Lionel. So they're like in a bookshop or things like that. Sometimes they go to his family home. So again, it's in another house. That's it, really. They don't very often go out into the world.
Because it's about character development.
Exactly.
Building those characters and following that story. And we're going to come across this with a lot of the shows that I will talk about. They're not going to win awards for like the funniest thing ever broadcast on television.
No.
It's about the character. And I think that's what you find with British sitcom. Certainly, it isn't about the joke per se. It's about the character.
Oddly enough, I think it's more of a, to use, I suppose, quite a British phrase, I guess, it's more of a little titter than it is like rolling about laughing. You know, it's like a little chuckle every now and again. And it's more of a smile while you're watching, because there are like laugh out loud moments where, you know, you're crying with laughter, but they're quite few and far between. And it's much more, as you say, about the characters. You're interested in what this character has to say and what they're feeling in the way they're interacting with each other, and you're smiling and you're having a little internal laugh or a little chuckle at their conflicts and their ways of being together. And, you know, I mean, in this particular case, there's a lot of eye rolling from Lionel at Jean and stuff like that. And it's very relatable.
Eye rolling at everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, Geoffrey Palmer in this is astonishing.
Yes, definitely.
I watched it for the first time in ages, and I was 18 when I watched it properly. And then watching it now, I see so much more in it.
Yes.
And it is one of those that rewards you when you go back to watch it again, and you're like, well, now I'm on Alistair's side, or now I see what Judith's talking about, or now I understand, you know, where Lionel's parents are. Like, I understand this, or now I understand the person who is originally with Lionel in the house, you know, the secretary who's a little bit chatty, whose name escapes me. You know, you understand this because I guess when you've lived a little bit more life, you start to understand where all these characters come from. I mean, this show isn't the most original. This thing's been done. Certainly, the premise of relationships blooming in old age has been done. I mean,
yes.
Shows like, and I'm going back a little bit, For the Love of Ada, for example, with Irene Handel and Wilfred Pickles.
I mean, another great example of such a thing. Yeah, exactly. And it's been done, and it's always, you know, in our experience with these two shows, it's very cute, and it's always very...
You follow the story.
Oh, absolutely. And it's comforting because, of course, I don't know, there's something softer about it, I think, because they're older characters. I think perhaps that's it. There's a softness, there's a... You know, there's no blunt edges. There's no we're trying to be edgy. There's no sort of, there's less conflict in a way, I suppose, between them as a couple because they've got this life experience and they're wiser and they're happy to take their time. And so it brings this real kind of, it's just soft and it's lovely and it invites you in, I think.
I mean, the thing about this as well is if you look at the actors that are in that series, a lot of series like this, the leads, that would be maybe one of their last roles that they would do. But Judi Dench has probably been in more productions after As Time Goes By than she was before it.
Or certainly big ones where she's the headline star.
Well, yeah, because 3 years after this started, she's in Goldeneye, and suddenly she's opened up to this entire huge audience. But you can thank whoever for the fact that she chose to do this really little TV show before going off to Hollywood and making all these movies in American and British film. And Geoffrey Palmer, he kind of pops up in things.
Lots of things.
Little bit parts. I mean, he was certainly big beforehand. He appears in a lot of Doctor Who, we found out, and he dies a lot.
Well, I guess he was just one of our great character actors. Like, he just played certain types in a lot of different TV shows. I think he did stage quite a lot too, and probably the same subsequently. I think maybe you have to kind of give it to those two, to the leads, that the combination of those two and them as individual performers too, just elevate that show. And everybody else in it is absolutely perfect also. This is the thing. Like, I do think personality has a great deal to do with it. I do think that they cast it, the balance somehow, you know, between all the different elements. But Judi Dench and Geoffrey Palmer, I think, are what takes this from a 2 or 3 series show where it's like, haha, that's funny, to this almost phenomenon. Like, it's there, you know, enough series where it feels like a real body of work. And
it felt like it went on forever.
It did, and it felt like it had been there forever in a way. And it was just so really raised, I think, above the average sitcom. Like we talked about For the Love of Ada, and that was a couple of series, I want to say, 2 to 3. And that's it. You know, it's done. It's had its usefulness. It's had its life. We've got nothing else to say. But they just kept finding things to say and do, and as time goes by, to just move the story along. From like series 4, I want to say, that's when I consider it to be like peak as time goes by. It's that real feeling of comfort. The characters are who they are, and every moment is perfect. Nothing's wasted, nothing's out of place.
And it's a prime period before the show inevitably goes off a cliff.
Yes, before they started, obviously, trying to conclude certain elements of the continuing story that runs through it. Because this is the thing, it's one of those sitcoms where it's a continuing story. There's a thread that runs through all the time. It's a long form narrative, really, as well as having shorter elements that are concluded within 1 or 2 episodes.
Because the arc in the first part of the series is obviously Lionel's book, and all the things that come to that, and the misunderstandings that come, and the publishing industry, and all the weird marketing stuff that Alistair comes up with that has absolutely nothing to do with the book. It's all very memorable. It possibly is one of the best sitcoms of the 90s, but I would like to turn it over to the listener. What do you think? Do let me know via the usual channels. This series obviously went on for a long time. There haven't really been any imitators or anything else that's come along of a similar vein, except maybe for Last Tango in Halifax, which is more of a drama comedy than a sitcom. I mean, obviously, again, casting 2 very established actors in that who've been in lots of things. And the fact that even with that series, you came in to that series 3 or 4 series in, because it was such a long time between series, and within minutes you got all the characters and everything. And I think it's the same with As Time Goes By. You can drop in at any time. You're like, okay, Lionel's the grumpy one, she's kind of the anchor in between, and you understand those characters.
That's true, definitely.
And that is the mark of it. Thank you for appearing on this episode. I'll try not to be so nervy next time. It's been a while since I've done this, and obviously I'm in a new studio as well, so I need to kind of find the vibe. Do you have a sitcom from the 90s that you would like featured? Would you like to come and argue the case for it to be considered the best British sitcom of the 90s? Just get in contact at 90s Naughties UK. Thanks, Andrea, for joining me. Bye-bye for now.